Hello, Mitch Miller here. It is 5:51 on Friday, April 15th, 2022. Welcome to my little video journal thing here. Today's episode is brought to you by Heineken Zero non-alcoholic beer. It's delicious. It's a Friday. So I'm trying to unwind a little bit. Anyhow, we're going over my criminal and mental health record, my incursions with the police or the mental health industry, usually both in the later times. I've gone through some of my encounters, and I know what you're thinking. It sounds a little schizophrenic. Satellites, beaming signals down, taking over, putting people's brains in cruise control, things like that. I know it sounds schizophrenic, I know. That's why I didn't share it with doctors or anything like that. I'm sharing it now, and if you really want to hear something schizophrenic, I said in previous videos that it could use these signals and these satellites to take over control of, say, military personnel in combat. What sounds really schizophrenic is that we park one of these satellites over every major metropolitan city and hack into the optic nerve of, say, celebrities, the beautiful people, and upload it to these VR goggles, and you get to have your own form of pornography. Anyhow, that sounds schizophrenic, right? Hacking into the optic nerve for content for VR goggles. Who knows what's out there? I mean, we don't regulate it. We're not regulating space, and we're not regulating technology very well. So the endless possibilities. I know it sounds like fantasy. Anyhow, back to my criminal record. That theory is for another video after I'm done with my criminal and mental health record. I will say this. After the last encounter, I said I was not intoxicated on alcohol. I know I was under the legal limit. They steamrolled me in. I may have had some residual effects from the marijuana, and I did admit to driving to a couple bars while a little bit high on marijuana. But I'll say this. Until they legalize marijuana and do studies into how it affects driving abilities, I still don't think I should have been arrested for driving under the influence. Who knows what they find when they actually do get to study marijuana. I mean, there's people driving around on ADHD medication that keeps them focused. What if marijuana just causes people to be hyper-focused on their driving, and it doesn't affect the motor reflexes and the things like that alcohol does? I'm not saying that their motor reflexes are going to be quicker, but it might not hinder it to much of a degree, maybe a fraction of a second compared to alcohol. I'll say this, in my experience, you can smoke a lot of marijuana and not get slurred speech and lose your balance like you do if you drink large amounts of alcohol. So it affects different parts of the brain, and it affects the brain differently. So until there's definitive studies, I know they're developing a breathalyzer for marijuana, which is fine. It is a substance that influences the brain, but I think there should be more studies. I think it should be legalized and studied into how much it affects and inhibits your driving abilities. So moving on. So that was my DUI. So within that same year, 2010, I believe it was 2010, later that year, I believe it was in November 7th, the night of November 7th, 2 days after November 5th. That's how I remember it. I wrote about the circumstances surrounding my psychotic break in my novel M, the novel M, just the book titled M. It's on Amazon, not for sale right now. And there were weird coincidences happening all around me, maybe because there was a signal being beamed down from a satellite, and it was affecting all the electronic devices around me. It was tapped into my mental brain waves, and things I was thinking were being said on the radio. It was a weird situation. Sounds like symptoms of schizophrenia, I understand that. But they were real coincidences. I was not hallucinating. I was hearing these real things and seeing these real signs. And I believed on the night of November 7th, it was a warning that someone, some entity, someone was coming to get me. So I went to my house. My spouse was there. I grabbed my hunting rifle. I went to the basement of my house to protect my family, my wife and my cat, from whatever it was. I cut the power to the house, the main power. My wife was getting a bit frantic. I asked her to come down into the basement. I asked for her phone. I locked both of our phones into a briefcase so that they couldn't listen to us. I gave her one key. I kept a key. Her aunt showed up because we had talked on the phone to her mom. I was having a psychotic break. Her mom was concerned, must have called her aunt who lives in Pittsburgh. Her aunt came to the door, couldn't come in, heard us in the basement, called the police. Hillary asked for the hunting rifle. I gave it to her. She set it off to the side somewhere. It was pitch black. I don't know where she set it. I'll later figure out that it was next to the stairs that came down into the basement. When the police showed up, Hillary wanted to go up and let them in. I knew they were coming to get me. I thought they were coming to get me. And I didn't want her to get hurt. So I wrestled with her in the basement. I'm a high school wrestler. I wrestled for 14 years of my life, 13 years of my life. I did not punch, I did not slap, I did not hit, I did not bite, I did not scratch. She struggled with me. I got her around the waist in a wrestler's grip. I've done this grip a million times. Sorry, thousands of times in my high school wrestling career. Got her around the waist, started chanting things and shouting at the police. She started yelling help. Then the police knocked down the door. I had her around the waist, and when the police came through the door, I wanted to let go of that grip. But I could not let go of that grip around her waist. My motor reflexes would not let me release my hands. I will go under polygraph test and say that I could not release my hands. She drug us over towards the steps. When the police came down the stairs with the first guy with a taser and a flashlight, she grabbed the rifle. She knew where it was. She tried to hand it to the police. I was still around her waist, and when I saw her giving away my only form of protection, I reached out. That's when the taser hit me. I fell to the floor, and as I like to say, I was pulled out of the matrix basically. My motor reflexes were reset. Maybe that's why they issue tasers now. They're having issues with people becoming inundated with wireless waves and having mental health difficulties. Maybe it's just so that they're not shooting as many people with guns. I don't know. Now, I believe that the supercomputers functioning on the internet that have some kind of keep some kind of track of these satellites and things like that, that they were warning me that this top secret CIA Johnson & Johnson whatever satellite, and CIA, by the way, could be Chinese intelligence agency, because we're not regulating space and we're not keeping very good tabs on it either. They showed me that what this thing was capable of. So that I would warn others. I believe. And now I'm doing that. I tried when I first got out of jail in the mental hospital, which I'll go into in a second. I tried to make a short film warning people about this technology, and I shot it. I never developed it, but I recorded it on magnetic tape. I didn't want any digital record of it. Could be schizophrenia, could be intelligence, I don't know. Anyhow, I was taken from my basement to the West Penn Hospital right up the street. They say they shot me with something. I don't think they did. They charged us for that. They took me to the Allegheny County Jail. It's all documented in my book, The Novel M. I was processed, asked to strip down on suicide watch, put in a padded gown, put into an observation cell that had a glass wall and a camera in it for a couple days. Then they put me in a cell in solitary confinement. I was allowed out of this cell for one 10-15 minute shower once per week. That's the only time I was allowed out of that cell. They fed me my meals through a slot in the door, so it was true solitary confinement. I was in a mental state that was not good. I thought my family put me there. I didn't have any contact with my family. I was in solitary confinement for 30 days. My friend, a public defender, was allowed in to talk to me a couple times. He could see that I was not in a good mental state. They started giving me a low dose, 2 milligrams of Risperdal. Sometimes I took it, sometimes I hid it under my tongue and spit it in the sink. I was in solitary for a month. And then they decided to send me to the Torrance State Hospital for evaluation. I spent 2 more months in the Allegheny County Jail waiting for a bed to open up. This time, now I was put into a different section of the jail. It was still a mental health section, but more people were allowed out into the common area. I was allowed out, I think, an hour in the morning, 2 hours after lunch, and an hour and a half in the evening, or 2 hours in the evening, into the common area. All meals were taken in your cell. Eventually the bed opened up at Torrance State Hospital. I was transported there. Looked like there was an Army Reserve unit right next to this hospital. From what I could see out the window, there were cameras in our section of the hospital. There's a civilian wing and a criminal wing. 3 pods in the criminal wing, 2 male and 1 female. Pretty big mental hospital. There was a phone where you could call your family, but I felt that I had scrambled the satellites. I was at a facility where that signal was not beaming down on us. I'd been hidden from the satellite systems, and so if I made a call to any of the people that I knew, they would be able to find my location again, and beam that signal back down on us. So I maintained radio silence the entire time I was at Torrance Hospital, which was basically 2.5 months. I think I was incarcerated for 5 months at that time. Food was much better at Torrance State Hospital. Basically, there was a TV room and people sat and watched TV all day long. I tried to exercise by pacing the hallways, the one hallway 3 times a day for an hour each time. Couldn't sit and just watch TV the whole time. Most of the people were heavily drugged and just stared at a TV all day. There were groups that you had to participate in, and the meals were taken at the cafeteria, so you got to walk the facility down to the cafeteria 3 times a day. Sometimes we got to go to the gym if there was enough staff and use exercise equipment, play basketball. I was released around this time, so November till April. It was right around Easter. At first I had to go back to the Allegheny County Jail. I was put back in solitary confinement for like a day and a half, 2 days, before I was processed to be released to my family. My mom, dad, and my wife picked me up. My wife gave me a little bag of those Cadbury chocolate eggs. Oh, that's the other thing. The whole time, my family put money in me for the commissary, but when I was in solitary confinement, I was starving myself quite frequently. I tried to do a hunger strike twice. I don't know how people do that. It's crazy. You have nothing to do but think. There were no books in solitary confinement. When I went to one of my hearings, I got out of solitary to go to a video hearing. A black man gave me a pocket Bible. I still have it somewhere. That was the only thing I had to read until I was released into the other general population kind of mental health section where we were allowed out. Finally, the last month while I was waiting for a bed at Torrance to open up, I decided I could eat candy bars, but I thought I shouldn't. I got some off of commissary, but I thought at first I shouldn't get any commissary because of all the people in other prisons that don't get these luxuries. I basically tortured myself in there a lot. I tried to make it as hard as possible on myself. A lot of it was my mental situation. Anyhow, my wife gave me a little thing of Cadbury eggs. We drove home, and it was strange. It was strange to be back in this house. The police tore the house apart that night. They found nearly a pound of marijuana in my house. They charged me with 4 charges, I believe. 2 of them were felony possession of marijuana and recklessly endangering another person. Because I was on accelerated rehabilitation disposition in Franklin, I lost that because I got charged with something else. So I had to go to a hearing back in Franklin for my DUI. Because I refused to do the blood test, I had to spend 3 days in jail in Franklin. Again, I had a roommate, or I had a cellmate this time, but it was 3 days locked in 24 hours a day except to get out to eat. My lawyer in Pittsburgh said he would have got time served for that, but my lawyer up in Franklin, Sean White, said he couldn't do that. Then the legal process for my felony marijuana and recklessly endangering another person happened. The police dropped it to just those 2 charges. I lost my license for another year, so I lost my driver's license for 3 years total. And I was on a year state probation for the DUI and 2 years probation for the marijuana charge. So that's that story. As I said, it was awkward when I returned home. Hillary was going to work every day. I would just lay on the couch and stare at the walls because that's what I had been accustomed to doing. I didn't turn on the TV. No stimulation. Just a lot of sitting around this house. Like I said, they tossed the whole house, but Hillary had it all put back together, and my parents put it all back together by the time, I mean, it was 5 months, so of course she put it back together. Quite the traumatic experience. I always say it was a nervous breakdown, but it was a psychotic break, I believe, caused by wireless waves, specifically some that were trying to get me to see what this technology is capable of and warn people about it. But you don't want to evoke you don't want to sound schizophrenic, or you'll go back to the mental hospital. You'll be kept there longer. So I kept my mouth shut till now, basically. I have the recording that I made when I first got out of jail. It took months before I could even think about doing projects again. About 6 months out, I got together this short film, shot on actual 16mm film, and I have the magnetic tape entitled M. I think 7 actors recorded audio. Had to memorize lines I made, and that magnetic tape recording is in my basement, and I have a magnetic tape player. So if you want to hear it, I got it. I tried to warn people, but I didn't have the money to do it the way I wanted to do it. I got off all social media, and I wanted to come out of nowhere as this weird underground artist with this short film. I was going to do this play and then play this short film after it. And experimental art piece. Couldn't raise the money to do it. So it never happened. This is probably going to be the longest one because there was a lot going on. I can't remember it all right now. What else I would say about that encounter. But join me next time when I talk about I guess the next time would be the Czech Republic, when I got put into a mental hospital in the Czech Republic after I tried to seek asylum because I was tortured in my own home by a satellite signal and had physical symptoms, muscle twitching, convulsive tremors after physical exertion, sleeplessness, night sweats. So, join me next time. Thanks for watching.